For many years, Earth was silent. The galaxy watched and waited. Once, humanity had been loud. Their ships had crossed the stars. Their colonies had touched distant worlds. Their voices had filled the skies with songs, stories, and warnings. But now, there was only silence. No messages, no starships, no movement. At first, the alien races thought it was a mistake. Maybe Earth's satellites were broken. Maybe their technology had failed. They waited for signs of life, but none came. Days turned into months. Months turned into years. Earth stayed silent. Across the galaxy, whispers began. "The humans are gone," they said. "The Earth is broken." They destroyed themselves. Some laughed. Some mourned. But most simply forgot. The great empires of the galaxy turned their eyes elsewhere. There were other worlds to conquer, other species to fight. Without humanity, the galaxy felt easier to control, quieter, safer. But a few did not forget. Hidden in the dark edges of space, some alien scouts kept watching Earth. They saw the blue planet spinning quietly around its star. They saw the empty cities and the silent skies. They believed Earth was weak now, an easy prize, a jewel ready to be taken. And so small ships were sent. Scouts, spies. They moved closer, testing Earth's defenses. They found no warships in orbit, no warnings from Earth's radios, no defense grids aiming at the stars. The reports were clear. Earth was defenseless. Plans began. Meetings were held. Empires decided that Earth would be divided among them. Its land, its oceans, and whatever technology was left behind. It would be easy. The galaxy smiled, thinking the age of humanity was over. But they were wrong. Deep beneath Earth's oceans, something ancient stirred. In the forgotten bases under the ice of Antarctica, silent machines woke up. In the empty halls of secret bunkers, lights blinked on. Earth had not been defeated. Earth had not been destroyed. Earth had been waiting. Waiting for the right time. Waiting for the right reason. Waiting for the perfect moment. The people of Earth had left the stars not because they were weak, but because they were preparing. Preparing for a storm they knew would come. But the galaxy did not see it. The galaxy believed only what their eyes showed them, a quiet, broken world. In hidden places, deep underground, men and women trained. Children learned the old ways of war. Scientists built machines bigger and stronger than ever before. The Dreadnoughts, mighty warships once thought lost, were sleeping in hidden docks, under mountains and oceans. They were ready. They were patient. Earth had chosen silence not as a sign of defeat, but as a weapon. Silence made the galaxy careless. Silence made them greedy. Silence made them blind. And now, the time was near. In one hidden base, far beneath the Rocky Mountains, an old general looked up at the glowing map of Earth's orbit. Dots of alien ships floated above their world. He smiled, a slow, cold smile. "They think we are broken," he said. Around him, officers prepared their stations. Pilots climbed into giant machines, weapons charged with a hum that shook the stone walls. "Let them come," the general said. "Let them see what happens when you wake a sleeping giant." Far above, in the dark skies of Earth, the first dreadnoughts began to stir. Their engines, silent for decades, roared back to life. Their guns, cold and dark, warmed with deadly power. Humanity was silent no longer. And soon, the galaxy would remember why they once feared the humans. The roar of Earth was coming. The silence was over. High above Earth, the galaxy's eyes were watching, silent and curious. The scouts had seen it all. Empty skies, deserted cities, a planet that seemed like a forgotten memory. They were sure that Earth was nothing but a faded relic of the past, a world with no future. The silence that had hung over Earth for years only confirmed what they believed. The humans were gone. The alien ships, sleek and quiet, hovered in the vast space above the blue planet, waiting for instructions. They moved slowly, observing from a distance, not sure what to make of the world they had once feared. There were no signals, no signs of life. No one on Earth seemed to notice the scouts, or if they did, they gave no warning. In the distant halls of alien council chambers, the decision had been made. Earth would be taken. Its resources were valuable, its land untouched. The planets nearby had been explored, but Earth was the final piece of the puzzle, the last untouched prize. No one had expected resistance. After all, Earth had been quiet for so long. No starships, no radio signals, just silence. But the scouts were careful. They knew that sometimes silence could mean something else. It could mean a trap or a warning. They had learned long ago that not everything was as it seemed. Still, the signals they had intercepted were weak and old. Whatever was left on Earth, they thought, was long gone. On their ships, the commanders discussed their findings. They had observed the planet from orbit, and while there was something odd about the way Earth had stopped communicating, it was clear there was nothing to fear. No signs of life, no signals from human ships. What they didn't know was that the silence was not a sign of weakness. It was not the stillness of a dying world. It was the calm before the storm. Deep within Earth's hidden bases, something was happening. In secret underground facilities, ancient systems that had been shut down for decades began to hum with life. The machines that had been dormant for so long slowly powered up. A network of deep space radar systems, once used to track threats from other galaxies, began to blink to life. The galaxy's eyes were not the only ones watching anymore. Hidden beneath the surface, men and women who had been waiting for this moment gathered in silence. They knew what was coming. The time had come to end the silence. The humans had spent years preparing for this moment, not in a hurry, but with careful planning. They knew the galaxy was watching, and now they were ready to show the galaxy something it had long forgotten. For years, Earth had been quiet, waiting. No one had realized that the silence was not weakness. It was strength. It was a signal, a warning. The galaxy had not seen the true power of humanity. Now, the deep rumble of machines echoed through underground bunkers. Commanders, soldiers, and engineers moved quickly, preparing for what was to come. In the quiet of the command centers, the tension was thick. The air felt heavy, as if the world itself was holding its breath. In the control rooms, screens blinked on, showing images of the alien ships above. A young officer stood before a large screen watching the alien fleet. He had heard the rumors, the stories from the past about Earth's power. But he had never seen anything like this. His fingers hovered over the controls, ready to give the order to activate Earth's secret weapon. His eyes flicked toward the window, where the distant stars blinked back at him. He had never felt so much weight on his shoulders. Behind him, the general who had been waiting for this day stepped forward. He was an old man, but his eyes were sharp, filled with knowledge of the past. He placed a hand on the young officer's shoulder. "Do not fear," the general said, his voice steady. "We've been waiting for this day. The galaxy thinks it knows us, but they have forgotten what Earth is capable of. We will remind them." The officer nodded, a surge of pride filling his chest. The silence was about to end. The world that had been forgotten, the planet that had been abandoned, was about to make its presence known again. The alien scouts might have thought Earth was a simple, quiet planet, lost in time. They were wrong. Above them, in the great silence of space, the first movements were already happening. The great ships that had been dormant for years were slowly coming to life. Their massive engines, once cold and silent, began to hum, ready for action. The first of the dreadnoughts stirred. Their giant forms, hidden under mountains and beneath oceans, were finally rising, as if they had always been there, waiting for the right moment. On the surface of Earth, no one knew yet what was happening below. The world still seemed as calm as it always had, but in the shadows, Everything was changing. The galaxy thought it had won, but humanity had never truly been defeated. The silence was over. It was time for the galaxy to remember what Earth was capable of. As the alien ships watched from above, they had no idea that their every move was being observed. The stage was set. A galaxy would soon learn the true meaning of Earth's silence. Far beneath the surface of Earth, deep inside hidden chambers and underground bunkers, ancient machines stirred to life. The world above remained unaware, oblivious to what was unfolding in the quiet darkness. Humanity had lived in silence for many years, but that silence had been a cover, a shield, hiding the truth from the rest of the galaxy. The machines that had once powered Earth's might were now waking from their long sleep, each one coming to life with a low hum, like a giant stretching after a long rest. The great warships that had once roamed the stars, their weapons ready to defend Earth's borders, were no longer dormant. They were awakening. In secret underground complexes, engineers and scientists moved quickly but quietly, working in unison to prepare the Dreadnoughts for the moment they had all been waiting for. These were no ordinary ships. They were vast, towering giants, built to protect Earth from the greatest threats the galaxy could offer. And now, after years of being hidden in the deep recesses of the planet, they were ready. A young engineer stood in front of one of the great control panels, her eyes scanning the screen as the numbers and data flowed across it. She had been trained for this moment her entire life, and yet nothing could prepare her for the reality of what was about to happen. The ship before her was more than just a machine. It was a symbol. It was a reminder of Earth's power, long forgotten by the galaxy. The silence had been a shield, but now the world would remember that humanity had never truly disappeared. Her fingers hovered over the controls, the tension in the room palpable. Every person in the room knew the stakes. The decision to wake the Dreadnoughts was not one made lightly. There were risks, dangers no one could predict, but there was no turning back now. The time for waiting was over. It was time to take action. As the engines of the massive ships below the surface began to power up, the ground trembled just slightly. It was not the kind of rumble that would be felt on the surface. Earth was far too large for such small movements to be noticeable. But to those who knew what to listen for, it was a signal. The Dreadnoughts were coming to life. In a control room deep within a mountain range, a group of officers watched as data poured in from various sectors. Their eyes never left the screens, their focus unwavering. Each officer knew that once the Dreadnoughts were fully awake, they would be unstoppable. These ships were not just weapons, they were symbols of humanity's resolve. For too long, Earth had been underestimated. Too long had the galaxy thought it was an easy target, a planet with no strength left to defend itself. The officers exchanged silent glances. They had spent years preparing for this moment, and now that it was here, there was no room for doubt. The fate of Earth, and perhaps the galaxy itself, hung in the balance. In the quiet of the command center, the general who had led the charge to awaken the Dreadnoughts stood tall. His face was etched with years of experience, but there was no hesitation in his eyes. He knew what needed to be done. He knew that humanity had to show the galaxy what it had forgotten. Earth was not weak. It was not a planet to be ignored. "Activate the main communication system," the general ordered. The young officer at the console moved swiftly, inputting the necessary commands. A low hum filled the room as the system powered up. Slowly, a map of Earth's orbit appeared on the main screen. Alien ships, their forms sleek and unfamiliar, hovered above the planet, unaware of the preparations unfolding below them. The general stood behind the officer, his gaze fixed on the screen. The time was near. "They think they can take us easily," he murmured to himself. "They have forgotten what it means to challenge Earth." The officer nodded but said nothing. He had heard the stories, tales passed down from generations before him, of Earth's great fleets and its power to protect itself. But those stories seemed like myths now. Humanity had been quiet for so long. Could the Dreadnoughts truly be as powerful as they were said to be? The officer looked at the general, who seemed to read his thoughts. The silence was our strength, the general said, his voice calm but filled with a quiet power. It allowed them to think we were weak. But we were always ready. We've only been waiting for the right moment. A soft beep interrupted the quiet. One of the monitors flashed with new data. The Dreadnoughts were fully awake, their systems running at full capacity. The ship's energy cores hummed with power, ready for whatever was to come. The young officer's fingers hovered over the communication panel. His heart raced. Earth's power, once thought lost, was now about to be revealed to the galaxy. The quiet planet, forgotten by so many, would show its true face. The galaxy had misjudged them. With a single press of a button, the officer sent a message into space, a message that would echo across the stars. Humanity is awake. The words were simple, but they carried weight. They were a warning, a challenge, and a promise all at once. The galaxy had underestimated Earth, and now it would face the consequences of that mistake. As the message spread through the stars, the Dreadnoughts began to move. Slowly at first, their massive forms rising from the depths. They emerged from their hidden docks, their engines roaring to life, their weapon systems primed and ready. Above, the alien ships remained unaware of the storm that was about to hit them. In the quiet darkness of space, humanity was no longer silent. Above Earth, the stars were still. The silence was almost deafening. For years, the galaxy had circled the blue planet, watching from afar, thinking it had seen all there was to see. No messages, no movement, just a quiet world turning slowly in space. But as the alien ships hovered, ready to carry out their plans, they did not realize that the silence they believed to be weakness was actually the calm before a storm. Down on the surface, deep within Earth's hidden command centers, the generals, officers, and scientists who had been preparing for this moment stood at their stations, waiting. The Dreadnoughts, massive and silent, had begun to rise, their systems online and humming with power. The ancient warships that had once patrolled the stars were ready. Their weapons were not aimed at enemies yet, but the officers could feel the shift in the air, the anticipation, the feeling that something monumental was about to happen. In the heart of one such command center, the young officer from before stared at the screen. The alien ships were still hovering over Earth, their sleek forms lined up like distant stars. Their movements were careful, calculating, but what they didn't know was that they had walked straight into a trap. Are they aware? The general's voice broke the silence. His voice, calm but filled with experience, made the young officer's pulse quicken. "They haven't detected anything unusual, sir," the officer replied, glancing at the data streaming in from the surface. "They still think Earth is defenseless." The general nodded, his gaze fixed on the screen, where the alien ships continued to circle the planet. "Good. Let them think that. We need them to feel comfortable. We need them to move closer. And when the time is right." He didn't finish the sentence. Everyone in the room knew what he meant. The time for Earth's silence was over, but the strategy was clear. Play the part of the quiet, forgotten world. Let the galaxy think Earth was no threat. And when the alien forces least expected it, when they were closest, the truth would be revealed. The young officer looked back at the monitors. Earth's great warships, still hidden beneath the oceans and mountains, were waiting. The Dreadnoughts were vast, their forms towering and powerful. But they were not yet moving. No, the time had not yet come. Patience was key. The plan was delicate. One wrong move, one rushed step, and the element of surprise would be lost. "General," the officer said after a moment of hesitation, "if we wait too long, they might turn their attention elsewhere. They could move on to another planet, and we might miss our chance." The general's eyes, sharp and focused, turned to him. There was no fear in his gaze, just steady resolve. "If we act too soon, they'll scatter. Our advantage will disappear. We wait until the perfect moment. When they think they've won, that's when we strike." The officer nodded, though doubt still lingered in his mind. They had been waiting so long for this, and the alien fleet was growing closer, inching ever closer to Earth's atmosphere. If they didn't act soon, the opportunity might slip away. But he trusted the general's judgment. The silence had been their ally up until now. There was no reason to believe it wouldn't continue to be so. Meanwhile, far above Earth, the alien fleet continued its slow and careful approach. They had scanned the planet for any signs of life, and found none. The satellites that would have detected military movements were all quiet. The radio waves were empty, void of any human signal. Earth, they believed, was just a shell of its former self. Yet the closer they got, the more uneasy the commanders of the alien fleet became. It wasn't that Earth seemed unprotected. It was something more subtle. There was a strange feeling in the air, an inexplicable tension, like walking into a room that had been quiet for too long. One of the alien scouts reported back to their leader, an older, wiser officer with years of experience. "Something feels wrong," the scout said, his voice betraying a hint of doubt. "It's as if we're being watched." The leader of the fleet shook his head, his voice firm. "You are imagining things. Earth is nothing. Move forward. We have wasted enough time." Still, the scout couldn't shake the feeling. Something about Earth seemed different, more alive than it should be. But his orders were clear. There would be no turning back now. Back on Earth, as the tension in the control room built, the general finally spoke. His voice was soft, but filled with quiet authority. "It's time." The officer glanced up from the screen, his heart pounding in his chest. This was it, the moment that would change everything. He gave the command, and instantly, the vast systems of Earth's hidden defense network came to life. The Dreadnoughts, which had been dormant for so long, began to move. Slowly at first, then with greater speed, their massive forms rising from the depths of the ocean, from the shadowed mountain bases, and from the long-forgotten tunnels beneath the planet's surface. The engines of the great ships roared to life, a sound that had not been heard in centuries. The machines that had been built to protect Earth now surged with energy, ready to defend their home from any who dared challenge it. The alien fleet, now closer to Earth than ever, did not see what was coming. They had no idea that humanity had been preparing, patiently waiting in the shadows, biding its time. The ships moved into position, their weapons hidden beneath the surface of the ocean, their massive forms rising like ancient titans. The young officer's fingers moved across the control panel, initiating the final sequence. The ground beneath them trembled as the first dreadnoughts broke the surface of the water, their engines propelling them upward into the dark vacuum of space. The silence was broken. The galaxy would no longer see Earth as weak or forgotten. The time for waiting was over. The galaxy would soon learn that humanity had never truly been silent. As the great dreadnoughts moved from their hidden positions beneath Earth's surface, the stars seemed to flicker in the distance. The alien fleet, still orbiting the planet, had no idea what was unfolding below them. They thought they were in control, that Earth's defenses had long faded into history. They had underestimated the quiet planet, and in doing so, had walked right into a trap. High above, in the control rooms scattered across Earth, the officers and generals continued their careful watch. Every movement, every flicker on the screen, was a piece of a larger puzzle. Earth's secret weapons, the dreadnoughts, were emerging into the light, but they weren't yet visible to the alien scouts. Not yet. The young officer stood at the central command panel, his fingers poised over the keys. His heart raced, and despite the years of training, he couldn't shake the feeling of urgency. The time had come, but with every passing second, the stakes grew higher. "General," the officer said, his voice steady despite the tension. "The ships are in position. We're ready to initiate the next phase." The general, his face weathered with age and experience, nodded in approval. "Good, but we must hold off just a little longer. We need to wait until they are fully committed." The officer glanced at the screens. The alien fleet hovered just outside Earth's atmosphere, still unaware of what was happening beneath them. Their advanced sensors scanned the planet, looking for any signs of movement, any trace of life. But Earth had been silent for so long, there was nothing to detect. The galaxy's eyes had been focused on the quiet planet for too long, and now it was their time to reveal their hidden strength. The general walked up to the officer, his steps deliberate and calm. "Remember, patience is key. We must make them feel like they're the ones in control, that they are the ones with the upper hand. If we strike too soon, we risk everything. If we wait, we win." The officer nodded, absorbing the weight of those words. There was a method to this madness, a delicate balance between surprise and strategy. The aliens thought they were the predators, but in reality, they had wandered into Earth's trap. From the deep recesses of the planet, the great engines of the Dreadnoughts continued to hum, sending vibrations through the ground. These ships were more than just machines. They were a symbol of humanity's strength, built to protect Earth from the most dangerous threats the galaxy had ever known. And now, after years of silence, they were ready to remind the universe of the power hidden beneath Earth's surface. The officer adjusted the coordinates on the console, preparing to send out the final signal. The Dreadnoughts were in their positions, their weapons primed but dormant, their sensors tracking the movements of the alien ships above. Everything was set. The entire planet seemed to hold its breath. Suddenly, the officer's hand froze. He looked at the screen in disbelief. A new signal had appeared, one that he didn't recognize. "What is this?" he muttered under his breath. The general quickly moved to the officer's side, studying the new information on the screen. It was a transmission from one of the alien ships, but this was different from anything they had anticipated. It was not a direct attack, nor was it a simple scan. It was a message. "Earth, we know you are there. We know you are not as quiet as you seem." The message read, the words flashing across the screen in strange symbols. "We can feel your presence. You are not alone." The officer looked up at the general, his eyes wide with uncertainty. The galaxy had always underestimated Earth's abilities, but this was something new. It seemed the aliens were not as blind as they had appeared. The general's expression hardened, but his voice remained calm. "They know we are here. They've sensed us, but it is too late. They've already made their move. Now it's time to show them we've been ready for this." The officer nodded, but inside, a knot tightened. Was Earth's plan truly foolproof? Had they miscalculated? But there was no time for doubt now. The Dreadnoughts were awake, their vast forms ready to rise, and the aliens had already set the wheels in motion. The countdown had begun. "We have no choice but to proceed," the general continued, his voice unwavering. "Initiate the plan. Let them see what they've been waiting for." The officer didn't hesitate. With a swift motion, he pressed the key, sending the signal across the planet. The massive engines of the Dreadnoughts roared to life as the ships began to move, rising from the depths of the ocean and the hidden bunkers in the mountains. The alien fleet, still hovering above Earth, remained unaware of the massive shift occurring below them. From the command center, they watched in awe as the first of the great ships emerged, its colossal form rising slowly but steadily from the water. The Dreadnought's massive engines flared with energy, sending a shockwave rippling through the ocean's surface. It was only the first. Soon, the others would follow. The general turned to the officer. "Now let them see the true power of Earth." The officer's fingers danced over the console, activating the communications array. Across the galaxy, the alien ships would receive a message they would never forget. The screens in the alien command centers would light up with the unmistakable image of Earth's might, the Dreadnoughts standing tall against the vastness of space, ready to defend their home. It was time to send the signal to the galaxy. The universe had thought Earth was weak, but now it would learn the truth. Earth had been silent, but it was never defenseless. The transmission sent out the image of the massive Dreadnoughts moving into position, The words flashed across the screens. Humanity stands. The silence is over. The alien ships froze. In that moment, everything changed. The galaxy's understanding of Earth would never be the same again. The quiet planet had awakened, and its strength was undeniable. The transmission had been sent. The message was clear. Earth was no longer a silent planet. The alien fleet, once so confident in their control, had now received a signal they couldn't ignore. They had underestimated humanity, and now they were beginning to feel the weight of their mistake. Up in the command center, the officers and generals watched as the alien fleet began to shift, their once coordinated movements becoming erratic. The quiet confidence they had carried with them for so long was starting to crack. They had expected an easy conquest, a planet ripe for the taking. Instead, they were facing something they had not anticipated. A challenge, one they were not ready for. "General, they're changing course," the young officer said, his eyes glued to the screen. The alien ships were starting to move, their formation splitting apart, seemingly in response to the message they had just received. They were no longer circling Earth as they had been. Now, they were retreating, shifting away from the planet's surface, their engines flaring as they readied for something unknown. The general stood silently for a moment, studying the screens before him. The situation was shifting rapidly. He knew the galaxy's view of Earth had always been one of apathy, even ridicule. For centuries, humanity had been thought of as weak, insignificant in the grand scheme of things. But now, those perceptions were being shattered. Earth's strength was no longer a hidden secret, it was being revealed to the universe. "They've received the message," the general said quietly, "and they don't know what to do about it." His words hung in the air, as if the realization was sinking in for everyone present. The alien ships had miscalculated. They had underestimated humanity's resolve. And now, the Dreadnoughts, these massive, ancient ships designed to defend Earth from the most powerful of threats, were prepared to show the galaxy what Earth was truly capable of. Despite the signs of hesitation among the alien fleet, the general didn't allow himself to feel a sense of triumph just yet. There was still much to be done. The Dreadnoughts were ready, yes, but they had to remain poised, strategic. The first move, the next move, had to be calculated perfectly. Humanity's strength was not just in its machines, but in its ability to think, to plan. "Activate the defense grid," the general ordered, his voice calm but firm. "Let's show them the full scope of our preparations." The officer at the console immediately got to work, sending the command to the surface. Across Earth, hidden bases and defense systems began to come alive. The Dreadnoughts weren't just ships. They were part of an intricate network of defense, a layered system of protection designed to shield the planet from any aggressor. As the officer worked, the general turned his attention back to the screen. The alien fleet was no longer retreating, but they were still on edge, their movements erratic. They had never encountered a planet that was ready to fight back. Their arrogance had been their downfall. They had never considered that Earth might be more than a quiet, defenseless world. But now, they were beginning to realize the truth, and that truth was slowly dawning on them, creating a ripple of unease throughout their ranks. On one of the alien ships, the commander, a seasoned officer who had seen countless worlds fall under his fleet's might, stared at the communication screen. The image of the Dreadnoughts, massive and powerful, continued to appear in their viewports, rising higher and higher into space. The message had been received loud and clear. "This is unexpected," the alien commander muttered, his voice filled with disbelief. He had known the Earthlings were resourceful, but he had never imagined they would possess this level of capability. His second-in-command, standing at his side, glanced nervously at the displays. "What should we do, sir? The fleet's in disarray. They're not responding as expected." The commander took a deep breath, his eyes narrowing. "We cannot underestimate them. They may have been silent for centuries, but now they're awake. We need to regroup." We need to rethink our approach. But it was already too late for that. The moment they had made the decision to enter Earth's orbit, the galaxy's view of this planet had shifted. The message had been sent, and the Dreadnoughts were now fully in motion, preparing for whatever was to come. Back in the command center on Earth, the officers continued to monitor the movements of the alien fleet. The alien ships, once so confident and sure, were now scattered. They were no longer in their original formation. The communications array was receiving fragmented messages, signs of uncertainty and panic from the alien fleet. Earth had disrupted their plans, and now they were scrambling to make sense of it. "We've caused confusion," the young officer said, his voice filled with awe. They're not sure how to respond." The general, watching with a measured expression, gave a small nod. "Good, but we must remain steady. The Dreadnoughts are not just weapons, they are symbols. They represent our will to protect this planet. If we want to send a message to the galaxy, we must do so with purpose." The officer looked at the general, understanding dawning in his eyes. The moment was not about brute force. It was about showing that Earth was no longer a place to be overlooked, no longer a weak and defenseless world. It was about revealing a quiet strength, a strength that had been hidden but now could no longer be ignored. The general turned back to the console, his fingers moving deftly as he sent the next command. "Prepare to engage. Let's show them what we've been holding back all these years." As the officer worked to execute the general's orders, the first of the Dreadnoughts began to fire its engines, propelling itself toward space with a low hum that vibrated through the control room. The other ships followed suit, moving in perfect formation as they began to ascend toward the stars. The alien fleet, still reeling from the unexpected disruption, saw the Dreadnoughts in full view now, their massive forms rising to meet them. The commanders on the alien ships watched with growing realization. The silence they had once misjudged was no longer a sign of weakness. It was a sign of humanity's power, hidden for so long but now unleashed. The quiet had ended. Humanity was no longer silent.